That was my next question.
Okay.
So moving up a little into the early 60s.
Trudging through time.
Trudging through time. Yeah. Right, but how did you meet the members of Grateful Dead, the original members, for instance, Phil Lesh?
Well, when I met Phil, he was a lunatic classical composer, and he had a little place in Berkeley, a little apartment in Berkeley, and he had like a card table that had orchestra charts, orchestra scoring paper, these things with a million staves on them. He was writing this thing for 4 orchestras, you know, and no piano or anything, you know. He had perfect pitch. He just pulled the notes out of his head. He had an incredible musical education, the most knowledgeable guy I've ever known.
So almost the opposite.
Oh yeah, totally different, but incredible, super live wire. Phil was, when I first met him. He was a real live wire. So we hit it off like sparks, you know, bam, bam, bam. And at the time, he was working at a radio station over there that was one of the Pacific, you know, like educational TV on the radio is what it boils down to. And he was the engineer for a funk music show, and at the time that was during my folky period, you know. So he liked the music that I was playing, my little blues tunes and folk songs and stuff. So he engineered this hour-long program I did for that radio show, and you know, that was kind of our first musical connection, because we were worlds apart musically. That's when I first met him. That was like 3 or 4 years before the Grateful Dead formed. And then Phil and I knew each other socially. We were friends. We weren't musically involved with each other. But then I ran into him again when the Warlocks had started, and there was my old pal Phil. See, and now he was driving a truck for the post office, you know, and a hippie, you know, and he came down to see the band, the Warlocks, as they were at that time. He came down from San Francisco down the peninsula and say, "Oh man, this is amazing." I said, "Hey man, how would you like to play bass in the band?" You know, because I knew that with Phil, he had so much talent. And he knew everything there was to know about music, you know, so the structure of rock and roll was certainly no problem for him. And all I had to do was tell him how the bass was tuned, you know, and 2 weeks later he played his first gig, you know. And basically he's invented the instrument, you know, as he's gone along. I mean, he's a guy who's invented a way to play, and in fact he's got a 6-string instrument, which is his own invention, and it's completely unique, and his whole approach to it and everything is completely unique. He's an amazing guy.
Where did Pigpen fit in?
Pigpen was another guy I knew socially, and he was this 15-year-old kid who was you know, hung out in Palo Alto, cutting school all the time and drinking wine, going over to East Palo Alto, where all the black people lived, and that was the ghetto. We all lived over there at various periods of time, and he hung out, you know, and played harmonica. And his father was the first rhythm and blues disc jockey in the Bay Area, which is an interesting thing about Pigpen. So he grew up with the blues and R&B, you know, it was just as natural to him as, I mean, that was the music that came out of it. If you asked him, what's music, what he came out with was the blues, you know. So he never really thought of himself as a performer. I don't think it was just something he could do, you know. And we would really coax him into it. We sort of forced him into performing, you know. So, and I also knew that he played a little piano. So, and it was just natural as can be, you know. Pigpen, hey, yeah, you know, he's a great singer, you know, sang the blues real well. So, from the jug band to a sort of electric blues band, that was the transition. That's what the Warlocks was originally, kind of.
Do you think that the sound of the Grateful Dead has ever been captured correctly or the right way on vinyl?
No, I don't.
A studio album, I should say.
No, not at all, not at all. Because when we go into the studio, we turn into these scientists. You know, we turn into another kind of. We become another sort of person, and it's no, we don't. I mean, it's like the difference between building a ship in a bottle and being in a rowboat on the ocean. You know, it's a world of difference. You know.
How would you compare like a Dead album, with the recent ones, to the older albums?
Well, it's hard for me to make comparisons. I see all of the Grateful Dead albums as near misses, you know, and like that, you know, because I can only see them in terms of the discrepancy between my own mental conception of what a tune should be like, and the realization, which I always feel is slightly flawed, you know, just because it always is. But that's the thing about the Grateful Dead, is that it's not my point of view. You know what I mean? So that's the thing I'm constantly coming to grips with. We all are in our way. There's the difference between what we think it ought to be individually and what it is. And what it is always turns out to be more interesting and more itself than any of our individual viewpoints contains. You know what I mean? It's the thing is larger than the sum of the parts of the whatever. You know, that rap.
When you're playing live, what specific songs do you play that take you off into the solos or the group, or what you're talking about, the group interaction?
Yeah.
Do you have any specific ones?
Oh yeah, there are ones that work that way. All of them potentially could, you know, and even our simplest songs are mostly choices being made in the present time, and that is to say that even if the song is just a short little, 4-verse job, you know, it's the simplest kind of like rock and roll song, a Chuck Berry song, anything. The simplest kind of song still is everybody is playing what they're inventing at the moment. You know what I mean? Even our simplest stuff is relatively free of specific hard arrangement ideas. There are a few things that we have that have specific things, but mostly the nature of our music is such that it all has a lot of improvisation, you know. It's that we deal with different forms. We have forms that are very, very tight and very structured, and others that are very open.
Why do you play? You play like 4.5, 5-hour sets.
Yeah.
Why do you play that long?
It takes us that long to get it together. I mean, and also it's that we don't really plan it, really. It's just that our ideas even our short ideas tend to be kind of long. Like for us, a short song is 7 minutes, you know. I mean, that's also one of the troubles we've had with records too, is that our ideas tend to be bigger, you know. The record is really not quite the right medium for us.
I also want to ask you about the films. You were involved in a couple of films. You did a documentary, I believe, on the Grateful Dead, like 74, 75 or something.
It's not really a documentary. It's a film, and it has documentary bits in it, true enough, but it's not a documentary. There's a little more art to it than that, as much as I hate to use that word. It's structured really using the form of the Grateful Dead concert as a model, kind of the same way that Deadhead's book is. The Deadhead's book is also structured the way the show is structured. So I use the Grateful Dead concert as a energy model. Like when you're making a movie, you want a movie to have certain things to satisfy that requirement of sitting in a theater, watching a screen. You know, it's not the same as being at a concert. You know, it's wants to be a movie. So that was what I wanted to have happen, and I didn't want it to be a documentary in the cinema verite sense. You know, and I wanted it to be something more than that. So for me, all of the bits of film, including the documentary things, they all have energy, you know, levels of energy and certain things. So for me, it was a matter of taking stuff like a documentary piece that had, you know, tremendous, that was up. I could use it in either as counterpoint, you know, in material that was down, or to move something along that was up, you know. So it was really making those things come together as another version of the Grateful Dead experience, so to speak. That was what the idea.
That's going to be out in video disc, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that particular one. Also, too, you're going to do a new Dead album?
Yeah.
When I understand, when are you going to start on that?
When we get a chance.
Further down the road.
Year.
Yeah,
Let you say that.
What can we expect from that?
Oh yeah, new stuff. We were already performing the new stuff, and this is a great luxury for us. You know, it's like usually we have to squeeze the new. None of us are crackerjack composers. You know, I mean, we've whipped ourselves into becoming composers. You know, you had to have original material. You know, that was always the rap, right? So you know, we flogged ourselves into becoming composers, and so our output is like not prolific. It's some extremely erratic, you know. And usually what happens is, for us, making a record is like doing a term paper. You know, we do it all gets done that Friday before the test, you know.
Speaking of term papers, I know a lot of our fans and stuff that are watching, while they're doing their term papers, are also writing us letters asking for some Grateful Dead video. Can we expect to get any video from the album?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. We definitely have tunes that are like tailor-made. I mean, there are some ideas that I would like to follow myself.
Your mic right as you started that question. Could I have Nina ask you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Okay.
Okay, ask me that again.
Not in the same way, because it...
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we are getting some letters, a lot of letters, as a matter of fact, from the people that are watching MTV, wanting some video from the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
Are we going to expect any video from the new album?
I think so. I hope so. I've talked to some of my friends that who have definite ideas about working with us as far as production is concerned, and I have some ideas of my own. But I believe mostly that I think we have some tunes that might work real well.
How do you feel the Grateful Dead fit in your music fit into the music of the 80s? What's going on now?
Well, it's Grateful Dead music of the 80s. You know, just because it definitely changes. I mean, we like everybody have ears, you know, and we're affected by, and we let ourselves be, you know, affected by whatever happens in music, and as we're exposed to it, you know, freely. You know, it's the thing of being freely influenced. We steal from everybody. And so, you know, so the 80s, I mean, the 80s version of us has things that I think certainly sounds and textures and stuff that belong to the 80s that make it different, say, from Grateful Dead of the 70s or the 60s or whatever.
Do you feel that there's still a 60s counterculture now in the 80s?
No, there's an 80s counterculture. I don't like that counterculture idea. It's not as though there were a culture to be counter to, you know what I mean? There's within the range of the American experience, down at down at the shallow end or something, you know, there are these margins, you know, and somewhere in the margin, I think, is where the Grateful Dead and Deadheads and whatever it is that we are part of, you know. Because I feel that we're part of something, but I don't feel that it's this banner, you know, that we're carrying along, this banner that's this relic from the 60s. It doesn't feel that way at all, you know, it isn't like that. And the Grateful Dead, just as we've moved through these periods of time, you know, the 60s, that period of time they call the 60s, that period of time they call the 70s or whatever, that emptiness they call the 70s, and so forth. I mean, it never has been... we've never felt attached to that stuff going on around us, really, because our directionality and the thrust of what we're doing has remained pretty much pretty similar to the way it's been, to the way it was when we started it. And what time has produced is maybe a little clearer focus, you know, maybe. And a little bit better, a little bit closer to that idea that we think is out there. You know, this is like this gamble that we're taking. You know, it's based on having faith that there exists. It's all been working, you know, amazingly enough, you know.
You think you're going to be together for a while?
Oh yeah,
will go on and on.
Yeah, I think so, because it still feels very much like we're just starting to get it, you know. Oh yeah, we're so close, you know. It has that feeling, and as long as it keeps having that feeling, like it makes it exciting, you know. As long as it has that feeling of like there's something up ahead that really, you know, that only we can get at, you know.
Slowest rising band.
Right.
You said you're still going up.
That's right. As long as it has that, we'll keep doing it.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.